So 227 is where we are today. I'm only going to go just a quick highlight of this. There were a bunch of folks that were missing yesterday and probably didn't even have a chance to do this. So I'm figuring, check the video, try the homework. On tomorrow's class, all we're trying to do is get through homework. So if you have any issues from homework, be it what we're about to learn today, what we did learn yesterday, anything through the chapter, tomorrow's a day to bring any question you have about homework. So that's emphasis of tomorrow. But that said, if you're stuck, let me unstick you. But if you weren't here, check the video before we try to just like reteach this whole thing from scratch. Is there anybody on 227 that when you did, it was a 1 to 19, did anybody run into any kind of problems on the 1 to 19?
15.
15. So 15, we got a squared plus 2ab plus b squared minus 9. So what was this called yesterday? Factoring by grouping. So our first move we had to decide is whether to do group of 2, or whether you're better to do group of 3 and misfit. Does anybody have a thought on this one? I'd say group of 3 and misfit. If we were doing the ones with the group of 3 and a misfit, we were hoping it would be a square. So for this one, anybody have an opinion? Is that indeed a square?
Yes.
It is a plus b squared. If we were doing group of 2, we were more factoring GCFs. And what should have happened with our parentheses? They should match. So if we did group of 2, the parentheses we're creating should match. But here, group of 3, hopefully it'll be a perfect square. Leave the other number out of it. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then flashback, a couple days ago we factored stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anybody, what was that called?
Difference.
Difference of squares. X squared starts us with x's. 9 ends us with 3's. We just make the 3's be different. So we're going to go similar concept here. The 9, again, creates us 3's that are different. But instead of an x squared making an xx group, the a plus b squared is going to make us go a plus b in one, a plus b also in the other one. And then we call it a day.
All right.
You good?
Yeah.
The group of 3 misfit problems, they start at 15 and go to the end. With a small twist on 19, what did you have to do on 19 that nobody else until number 19 did? Take out a GCF. You can take out who on 19?
2.
Take out a 2, set it aside, make sure you remember it in the answer. But on 19, take out a 2, and once you take out the 2 on 19, it's very much like this. So is 16, 17, 18, very much like that. Anybody else? 227 on the first, 1 to 19. Anybody get hung up on anything with that? Anybody 227 stick?
What was the answer before?
You would copy the m minus 4 and have that be in a set of parentheses because it was the same. Then you'd add the other pieces that aren't m minus 4s. So what do you think?
I should have m parentheses and minus 4.
Okay, we want to add the m with the m.
So it's 2m.
2m. And the 3's would basically eliminate each other. So it'd be 2m, which if you do parentheses or not around 2m, no one cares. But for sure, parentheses around the m minus. Yeah. Number 7? 17. Okay, 17. I would do it. Did you understand what we did on 15? Okay, I would do it pretty much like 15. The first 3 are going to make a square. Leave the other one out of it. Okay, whatever square you make, just put it at the beginning of the answer on both factors. And then the thing that's sitting here by itself as the misfit, that 4s squared. What do you think about these positions because of the 4s squared? 2s, 2s. Yeah, so you'll get something, something, 2s, 2s, plus, minus. Is that enough of a tip?
Yeah.
Anybody else, anything 227 spills into 228, anything up to 19 that caused people any hesitations?
I do 19.
19, start off by taking out a 2. Take a 2 out of everybody.
Oh, I see that.
And then it should be the same as the few before that. Is that okay, enough of a hint?
Yeah.
Anybody else, anything else, 227, 228, anything to get you moving, unstuck again? If you have that all the way done already, send it down. If you've been absent or if you got scrambled, just keep it till tomorrow. We'll get those tomorrow. Today we finished doing 5-5, a thing called completing the square. So the idea of today is they're going to give you something. They're going to want you to think about trying to factor this as a square, but you don't have enough numbers. You're missing a number. So what they're going to ask you at the beginning of the homework is just figure out the missing number. Okay, if this were x squared plus 12x and something else, it would make a square. And they want you to just solve that mystery of who should live there that doesn't yet, and we want it to be there. So sometimes it's easier to think of what square this would make. Sometimes it's maybe easier to figure out the number first, but I think for most people, it's easier to think of what the square would be and then double back to who is missing. So let's try that first. Can anybody think of what square that's like close to being, but we're short the number? This would be x plus 6 squared. Why do you know it's plus? Because we copy the sign. How do you know it's 6? We'd have to add the two together, and there's two things that would be the same. In the middle, when we were like squaring things out, how did we always make the middle number, the middle term? We added them together, but we eventually figured out a shortcut. It was always going to be double, always double. So if this is getting doubled to create it, to uncreate it, we cut it in half. So if I asked you, what square is this close to being? It would have an x, because x squared would lead you to an x. The plus would be a plus. Half of 12 is 6. That's the square that it's like sort of close to being, but it's short the number. Can anybody then figure out what the number would be? 36. Why would it be 36? 6 times 6 is 36. We'd want to square that number. So we're just going to do a two-step process. Take half of this number, that tells you what square it could have been, and then square it. And that tells us what number that we're short. Did we really need to write this down?
No.
Not really. Okay, we just need the missing number, but that needs to flow through your head. So 14, half of that, 7. So the missing link is a 49. Sign on this? Plus or minus? It is a plus. Could it ever be a minus? Yes, no?
That would make a difference as well.
Let's come back to that question. So this one's a little bit more awkward. Why is this one more awkward? True. Also more awkward.
But you can't cut it in
You
half.
can't really, I mean, you can cut it in half. It just makes you a little grouchy.
It's 4.5.
4.5 if you like decimals. So the answer is 4.5? No, what do you need to do?
Square it.
Square it. So somebody either with a great mind or a machine, 20.25 is correct. Sign? Because we had a little bit of crisis a minute ago. People were starting to say, well, maybe if that's negative,
Still
maybe.
plus.
Why still a plus?
Because the sign could be the same.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah, to be a square, like the two factors would have to have the same sign. Another way you could look at it is, if we're squaring things, stuff times itself
It has to be plus.
has to be positive, because a negative times a negative Still a positive. The missing link numbers are always going to be positive numbers. Same process. This one just makes you, here's an alternative way to, if people like fractions better, cutting this in half, you could think,
4.5.
you could go 4.5. I wouldn't probably go mixed though. 9 over 2. If you square 9 over 2, 9 squared, 81, 2 squared, 4, that's just as good. So if you like decimals, do decimals. If you want to think 9 over 2 and square 9 and 2 and keep it in fraction form, I've got no issue with that. This one, again, first step in the chain. Get 2.1 in your mind. We're cutting that in half, so 2.1 is in our mind. 4.41 is correct. And again, sign conversation,
Plus.
always plus. Half of 2/5. No. No. Half of 2/5. Keep a fraction if you can.
Half?
It would be 1/5. Okay, so this always blows people's minds at first, so let me try to make fraction life easier. If I say half of 2/5, a bunch of you just went. Half of 2/5. Okay, we want 1/5 to appear in our mind. So don't think of it as half of 2/5. Think of it as half of 2/5. Okay, so if I want half of that, don't try to do half of 8/11ths and like your brains explode. Just think half of 8/11ths, 4/11ths. Okay, don't worry about the bottom. Just do half of the top. That's going to work most of the time, half the time, I'll say. If I wanted to do half of this, you can't do half of 7, so I could take a similar but different trick. If I can't have the top, what could I do instead of the bottom? Double the bottom. So if you can, have the top. If you can't, double the bottom. Half of this would be 4/11ths. Half of this would still be 7, but over 22. So maybe that makes your fraction life a little easier, a little bonus knowledge for you. But half of this is 1/5. So who's the missing length if we're thinking about 1/5? If you want to go decimal, it would be 0.04. If I want to stay in fraction time, 1/25. But I have no objection to 0.04. Question about any of that so far? Thought on this one?
5B.
Close? Somebody mumbled, but not very loud. And I've got this machine that's always in competition with my hearing. 25's involved.
Oh, do you want the straight answer?
Yeah, they're in the box, final answer.
Is it 25B?
That's very warm.
25B squared.
That is correct.
No, I had major data on this.
So we're focused on this whole package. Okay, this had a y squared. We tune out the y. We focus on everybody that's there with the y. When you do half of that, it's 5, but it's also a b along for the ride. And then a 5b times another 5b is a 25 with a b squared. And that's our first skill of the day, is just figure out what are we missing. That's called completing the square. If they say complete the square, all you're doing is missing link number. Yep.
So you just cut out the y and the bottom one?
Yeah, we're just assuming there's going to be variables in there. Like this had x squared and x, this had x squared and x, you know, the whole way down. This had y squareds and y. We don't worry about that. We're worried about the stuff that's with that middle term, but not really paying attention to the letter who's everywhere. Anybody else question about finding the missing link number? That's skill 1. There's 2 skills of the day. That's skill 1. Let's take a stroll to the left then. Okay. So skill 2, they'll change the directions and they'll say factor by completing the square. So again, skill 1, directions will just say complete the square. All you need is that one missing number. Skill 2, factor by completing the square, you're gonna have to show me work. Okay, what they've done on the homework is given you problems that are not that hard to factor by things that you can do. We already know where this answer is gonna go. Like, using things we did another day, back to Algebra 1, you'd go x and x plus both or one of them? Both numbers.
11, 1.
Okay, if that's all your paper says, I'm not giving you credit for the homework, okay? Because did we just factor by completing the square? No, okay, we just factored. We were able to do that because they gave you an artificially easy problem, okay? I'm not gonna let you take advantage of the people writing the book to artificially do the problem an easier way, okay? We're gonna need this factor by completing the square skill later in the book. I'm not going to show you a problem that could only be done by completing the square now, but I'll just tell you they exist. Okay, so these, could we do all of these by the skills that we already possess? We can. But on the homework, you have to do it the way I'm going to show you, and you have to show me work to verify you have this skill. Because someday you'll need this skill and there will be no way around it. Okay, today there is a way around it. Future days there will be no way around this. So to build the skill, I'm just making you show me the work. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, is ignore that last number and think about what square this would be. This x squared plus 12x, that's where we came in over there a minute ago. We created the 36, did all the stuff we did over there. This was going to be x plus 6 squared. Copy the sign. How did we do this first maneuver over there? We just cut it in half. Okay, what that's telling us is we'd rather not have an 11. Who is it that we would rather have?
36.
A 36. Okay, I think at this point in your algebra career you realize you can't take a problem that somebody gives you and go, I'm just going to cross out the 11, I'm going to put a 36 because I like it better. If you're going to do something weird like that, you have to pay for that. Okay? So if you turn an 11 into a 36, that just went up by 25. So you have to pay for that. If you're going to go up 25, that's only okay if at the same time you go down 25. So this is equivalent to that. It's in a new form, looks different, but it's still like true, it's still correct. Question about what I just did there? How can we factor this thing? You did a handful of these yesterday.
Plus 6 minus.
Go x plus 6, x plus 6. Put those twins on two sides. My chalk is fading hard.
And one would be plus 5 and the other would be minus 5.
Correct. So the x plus 6 that's squared makes twins. The 25 makes twin 5s. One of them has
Plus minus.
plus, the other has minus. If you go ahead and put add 6, add 5 together, it's the x plus 11. What if you do the plus 6 minus 5? That's a plus 1. We knew that was coming from the moment we started. I mean, use that to verify that you're right. I don't mind that. But if I don't see squares and I don't see something like this, I'm just going to give your paper back and say, no, you need to build that skill. 'Cause again, today, could you have stepped around that?
Yeah.
100% yeah. But you can't do that forever. You have to have this skill in your toolbox somewhere to do some of our chapter, I forget what chapters, but it's a bunch of chapters. We're going to need that skill. Question about that?
Where do we get the 5 from?
25 is 5 times 5. So let's go at it again. First thing you'd want to try to figure out is what square this thing would be. So x squared determines x plus, to copy sign, 13, because we're cutting in half. Half of 26 is 13, so this is a 13 squared. 120 is not consistent with 13 squared. So we need to figure out what 13 squared would be. 169. We'd rather the 120 be a 169, but we're going to have to make payment for that. We just went up by 49. So the only way it's legal to go up by 49
Go down by.
is to go down by 49. That's what makes this new. Question about the newness of that?
Where'd you get 169?
13 times 13. Same way we were doing that column over there, we were doing stuff times itself, stuff times itself. It's still the same steps of go half of this, just jot it down for sure this time, and then square it. We're gonna go half of this is 13, and I squared it.
I just don't know my things from time tables.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Then you grab a calculator and push the buttons.
Yeah, most people don't, Matt.
Factor in this, we're gonna get those almost twins. The x plus 13 squared is gonna go
X plus 13.
x plus 13
X plus 13. Minus
minus
7.
the 7
Plus
plus
7.
7. Grand total off of that, adding stuff,
20.
x plus 20. Grand total of the add 13 to
6.
subtract 7 is an add 6. If you want to check it by our traditional means, do those multiply to 120?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Do those add to 26? Yep. You know, signs are the same, both pluses, you know, it's consistent with the other things we've learned. I'm just not taking it unless you show me the complete square root. Something on that?
What if we like, how did we like finish that one?
Adding 13 and adding 7, they're like terms, so it add 20. Is that where you mean?
Yeah.
And then the add 13 subtract 7 is an add 6, because the positive stuff was bigger. Something there? Can you wait one more problem? The last one's one of a kind. It's the same reason that the homework last night's last problem was one of a kind.
You can take away a 2.
We're gonna take out a 2. So again, I don't know if this is like a good habit or a bad habit, but I like to just take my 2, take it to my answer area. I don't have to worry about remembering it later, and I don't have to write it at every single level of my work. I'd rather not go through these problems copying 2s at every level. That's my personal opinion. So if I take out a 2, who's left?
X squared. 24. 63.
Correct. So 2 came out, that makes new stuff. I got my 2 in my answer zone, and I'm good. Question about the 2 came out. Then what?
Yeah. Got the X. Minus. No, it's plus. It's plus. Oh no, it's minus. It's
That's
minus.
minus.
12. Parentheses. Square.
That is x minus 12 squared. We're going to copy the minus. Half of the 24 is a 12. That's the square we want to create, but that square isn't exactly there right now just yet. It's in that neighborhood, but who's the mess?
Minus.
63.
63 is not the right number to be x minus 12 squared. Who should 63 really be? 144. 12 times 12 is 144. That's the truth of what we need for this to work. But we just went up by 81, so we've gotta go down by 81.
Alright. I'm back on track, Joe. I'm ready now.
Anybody need me to pause there before we go up another move? Okay, beginnings of both of these?
X minus 12.
X minus 12. Don't change that sign. Endings? Nines. Signs on the nines?
Plus minus.
One of each. So the grand total of negativity,
Negative 21.
21. Grand total of negatives versus positive, who wins?
Negative 3.
Negative win by 3. If you want to FOIL that out, I would check. Question about that? And homework on this will work 24 to 36. And then I'm going to do one bit of bonus footage that I should have done the first day. I'm going to show you a little thing called Pascal's triangle, and then I'll show you what it's good for. So I'm going to start off with a bunch of 1s. And what I'm going to do is try to add these numbers. If there's 2 of them, diagonally add them to just create this big pyramid of numbers. But like this position diagonally touches the 1s, so add to 2. This position only connects to that 1, so just leave it as a 1. This position only connects to the 1, so leave it as a 1. I'll build another level. 1,
3,
3,
3, 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, 5, 6, 5, 1, oh, I hate this. 1, 6, 15, 20, 15, 6, 1.
Calm down.
I'll go one more level.
1, 7, 21, 35, 35, 41, 7, 1.
So here's something that you could do with this. Okay, this is the 3rd level of creation. Trash. Oh, excuse me, come to me.
Hi, Lance. Remember me? You got it back. Hi. Am I doing
Another
good?
appearance. You're great. You're a star. You're
2
probably
plus-
trending right now on social media.
2 plus 1 is.
3.
I'll let you figure it out.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. So here's something I could do with this. If I want to go x plus 1 cubed, if you remember us doing some cubes, like the first day we foiled, we did cubes. X plus 1 cubed would be x cubed plus 3x squared plus 3x plus 1. Just go in descending order with like those numbers as my coefficients. So what do you think this level could do for me? X plus 1 to the 4th would make
To the 4th,
x to the 4th plus
to the 3rd,
4x cubed,
to the 2nd,
6x squared,
x.
if I wanted to go x plus y to the 5th,
You just put a what?
this would have x to the
Oh.
5th, then x to the
Oh.
4th cubed squared x,
Why 5th?
a number. This would have y to the 5th, which means this must have
Why 4th?
y 4.
Why 3rd? Why 2nd? Why? Wow.
What would this do for me? Stuff to the
1, 2, 3,
7th.
Oh.
So if I wanted to hit up an x plus 1 to the 7th, this would have x
7,
7,
6,
6,
5,
5,
4,
4,
3, 2,
1,
1.
0.
And
If I decided to upgrade that to also have a y,
7,
y 7,
6,
6,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
If you find that interesting, Google Pascal's triangle. It's named after a guy from France in like the 1700s.
Put that down.
How do you figure that out?
What's that?
How does somebody even like figure that out?
Google it and see. I briefly looked it up to make sure I was giving you the right title because I was 99% sure that's what that was called, and I was right. But it said it was known for centuries before him, but they named it after this Pascal guy in the 1700s in France. But anyway, bonus knowledge off of that. But homework, again, we're working 227s built into 228. We're 24 to 36 on this. Sheets the next day, quizzes the next day. That's all I got.